be present here today. And the partnerships are continuing to grow and develop as our network grows and develops as well. So when we came together through this planning grant, we really wanted to orient around kind of this long-term guiding star vision of what do we want to work toward as a partnership. And what we came together around is the following guiding star: an equitable and resilient food and farm system that produces health and abundance in the Roanoke region. So this is really our long-term goal. And then our near star is kind of the way that we begin to work toward our goal. And that is mobilizing an expansive network to create a collaborative, action-oriented framework to prioritize food and farming systems in the Roanoke region. So that's really where the Roanoke Regional Food System Partnership comes in, is how do we come together to develop a framework in order to reach our guiding star. So over the past year, we've really been diving into a process of research and in order to really think about the ways, what we want to prioritize as a network in order to reach our guiding star. So what we've done is done a systems mapping process. So over here on the right, you can really visualize the complexity of the food system as it touches across multiple sectors of society: economic systems, social systems, biological systems. So what we wanted to do was go through a process as a group to really dive in and understand the complexities of this system and what factors inhibit just and resilient food systems and what factors enable a just and resilient food system. And by looking at all the complexity of those factors, where can we identify those leverage points to create systems change? And beyond that, we did a pretty extensive literature review process looking at existing regional food systems assessments that have been done across the Roanoke region, because this work is definitely by no means new, but has been done by numerous people over many, many years, looking at our food system and what really needs to be prioritized in order to create food systems change. And then beyond that, there's a suite of broader literature, both national and global, that has, research that's been conducted on food systems that we dove into as well. And through this research, our leadership team really decided to orient ourselves around 4 specific goals. So the first goal is really focused on healthy food access. Second goal is focused on regional food identity. The third goal on regional food production, processing, and distribution. And then the fourth goal is all about creating a trusting and transparent network. So what we did was kind of restructured our network around 4 working groups. So each goal represents 1 working group. And we chose these specific goals because we really wanted diverse partners coming together. So how could we create network goals that supported cross-sector relationships in the food system? Because it's those diverse partners coming together that really creates the change that needs to happen. And so currently we have two leaders of each working group centered around each goal. And each working group is coming together on a monthly basis with a diverse suite of partners in each working group to develop a goal-oriented action plan to really identify priorities within this specific goal to kind of move the broader network forward. And each of the co-leads for each goal come together into a monthly meeting to talk about what's happening across the diverse working groups so that the network can kind of function and operate as a cohesive whole. So if you're in the Roanoke region, or even if you're not in the Roanoke region, but still interested in getting involved, whether it be with the food system partnership as a whole, or if you're interested in one of the specific working groups, you can reach out to me at mo@wheatforlocalfood.org. And I'll pop my email in the chat too. So if you don't get it down right now, you can touch base with me later. So from here, I'll actually pass it off to Eric to introduce our speakers today.
Thank you, Mo, and welcome everybody to this second in the series of learning exchanges. And the topic for today is asset-based food economies in Appalachian, Ohio, and focus on rural resiliency. And we're pleased to have Tom Redfern from Rural Action. He serves as the Director for Sustainable Agriculture and Forestry for the organization, and Leslie is the Director of Programs and Business Development for Appalachian Center for Economic Networks. And I've related both to Tom and Leslie through the Central Appalachian Network on food system issues, infrastructure issues, and trying to address issues of food access and equity across the region. So very pleased to have both Tom and Leslie here to share about their organizations and experience in building a network. So with that, I'll pass it over to Tom.
Hi, everybody. Thanks to Eric for inviting us here today. Sounds like a great project. So I'm Tom Redfern. I'm the Director of Sustainable Agriculture for Rural Action. And we are a membership-based nonprofit in working throughout the Appalachian counties of Ohio. Next slide.
One second, I'm having a little tech.
But anyway, we work in mainly Southeast Ohio, but we have offices in 3 different counties. This slide is kind of like the overview of how we work as an organization, because Rural Action is made up of multiple program areas, which include sustainable forestry, sustainable energy, zero waste, social enterprise development, sustainable energy. And within all those program areas, we do multiple projects, but it's all kind of rooted in what we think of as asset-based community development. Next. These are like the cornerstones of what the ag program does. So we do a lot with farmer education, some with consumer education, but the cornerstone of our education is often peer-to-peer education, where we try to support, producers to share their intellectual capital with other producers. Then we own and operate the Chester Hill Produce Auction, which is just what it says. It's a produce auction, and we can talk about what that means. But it's basically a mechanism for us to put together small producers to support institutional and wholesale markets. And then we do partner with AceNet and some other places to process, which for us mainly is for the farm to school work we do. We work with schools to purchase food during the peak of the season and then like freeze it for distribution when school's in session. So we have 2 refrigerated vehicles. So education, aggregation, processing, distribution is a big piece of what we do. Next. So here's a good slide because a really important piece of rural action is that since the late 90s, we have hosted national service members, which include Vistas and AmeriCorps, and Rural Action places them with other organizations throughout the region. So thinking about the programs we have, being a host for like a 35-member AmeriCorps program is a big piece of that. Next. So here's some AmeriCorps working on a training, and the reason this is important, I think, so Rural Action has certain goals. My favorite one is to train that next generation of leaders. So the AmeriCorps program is a big piece of that. So right now, our new director for sustainable forestry served as an AmeriCorps with me, and we put people all over the region and indeed the world as leaders in sustainable development. Next. So here's one of my favorite examples of our peer-to-peer education. That's Kip Rondi from Green Edge Organic Farm. And for about 8 years, we worked together before they retired on the season creation model, we called it, because we focused on winter production in his high tunnel. So people came from all over the region and all over central Appalachia. Probably like 1,000 distinct attendees. So this is a perfect example of that peer-to-peer education model. Next. When we talk about asset-based development, natural resources are a big piece of that. Non-timber forest products. So here's a crew harvesting ramps from an arboretum, which we partner with. Which were then distributed to growers. Next. We work with farmers in multiple sectors. So this is Carrie Starr, and she's been working with us as a mentor to other farmers, and she's a bison rancher up in Perry County. Next. We talked about the Chester Hill Produce Auction, big piece of what we do with aggregation. Next. So this is a day at the produce auction. You can see the foods laid out. People come from all over the region, and it serves consumers at multiple levels. So you can see the couple in the middle, they're coming up from West Virginia and buying in bulk to resell it, as an example. Next. So here's some bounty at the produce auction. You can see it's the number would be the seller, so people can identify it and bid on it. Next. So this is just me ogling a truckload of produce. Next. So a big piece of what we do too is food safety education. So you can see the sticker on the tag right there. Tells the customer that this is a GAP certified producer, which is a third-party food safety audit, which is required by certain institutional buyers we work with. Next. So here's kind of a map of the produce auction, but you can see the, you know, the where the auction is, and most of the growers are within like 30 miles of the auction, but the food itself is going all over West Virginia and Southern Ohio. Next. So here's an old slide, but you can see the trajectory of growth at the auction. The history is that in 2004, when I started here, we wanted to like figure out strategies to serve institutions. So we needed to figure out a way to aggregate produce. We met an Amish community who brought up the idea of a produce auction. So 2005 it opened, and then Rural Action worked with the community to purchase it. From the entrepreneurs who had started it. And then in 2021, we reached 400,000. So it's kind of a community effort. Next. And you can see it's a region of high food insecurity. So that's something we're working on. Next. We have a project called Country Fresh Stops, which is kind of a food desert remediation effort where we purchase, we being Rural Action, purchases from the auction. We take it to corner stores, and here's a pop-up model at a hospital. Next. So farm to school, we purchase from, once again, the auction, and work to process it and take it to schools. Next. Here's a corner store with produce, 15 miles from like the nearest store of any size, but they have produce. Next. So here's a delivery we made to Ohio State University before the pandemic in our refrigerated truck. Next. So here's, so all the counties there receive produce through the produce auction. So you can see it's a pretty big footprint. Next. One thing we think of, you know, Rural Action has programs, we have projects within programs. Certain thing that's really helped us is that we consider the partnerships we have as a project. We put a lot of time and effort in being transparent with our partners, sharing funding, and always working together to bring in new partners. All right, now I'll turn it over to Leslie.
Thanks so much, Tom. So sometimes it's a little confusing to understand where the boundaries or where the differences are between ACENET or the Appalachian Center for Economic Networks. I'm going to use the acronym throughout, so just refer to us as ACENET. And Rural Action is. When Rural Action formed in 1992, ACENET predates it a little bit, forming in 1985, but ACENET has always worked with food and farm entrepreneurs. So Rural Action's focus on really supporting agricultural producers just has aligned so much with ACENET's enterprise development work. So going to the next slide, I think what differentiates us in terms of our partnerships is that we're really focused as an economic development organization. We primarily work in the southeastern Ohio counties of Appalachia, Ohio, but we do serve as our primary service area the 32 counties of Appalachia, Ohio. So that goes all the way up to the Lake Erie and all the way over to just east of Cincinnati. That said, usually when we're working a little farther afield in our larger geographic region, we're usually working with partners. So the important thing I think to know about us is we are network weavers. That's what we do. We recognize as one organization, we can't make the change alone that we want to see within the places that we serve, the people that we serve. Next. So ACENET really has a few key services that we use to leverage sort of economic development done differently. I think that's probably what we're known for. We're not traditionalists in any way when it comes to economic development. So we really have always focused the last 37 years now on training and technical assistance, working directly with communities, working directly with individuals, working with folks who are aspiring entrepreneurs or maybe even established small businesses to get them the assistance and the training resources they need. We're probably best known for operating business incubator campuses. We have one in the city of Athens with 3 facilities. Probably best known on that campus is our Food Venture Center. One of the first, I think we were the 3rd rural kitchen incubator to open in the US back in 1996. So, almost ready to celebrate our 26th year, lots of lessons learned. But in the aughts, we expanded to another business incubation campus up in the city of Nelsonville, which is the northern part of Athens County. We have 2 buildings. One is 100,000 square feet. The other is 5,000 square feet. And because of the work in partnership with Rural Action and many, many, many other collaborators, about 20,000 square feet of that larger Nelsonville business incubation has become the Food and Farm Enterprise Center. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. And then I think what we've always really seen in terms of really affecting change is food and farm entrepreneurs really need support in accessing markets. And as they grow, maybe to more wholesale distribution, especially regional distribution, there's a lot of key, I would say, interventions that we and our partners provide. And then because we operate 2 facilities where a lot of FDA food processing is happening, we've always had to have key staff who are really helping with product development. And that happens at all levels. It might be Adam Cody, our sort of resident food science trainer. It might be our multimedia designer, Delia, who are helping people think about the name of their business, the labels, the packaging. So we're kind of full service when it comes to the product development pieces. We do outsource some to other processing authorities, but to a large degree, we've really, I would say, extended our services in that area. And then we've dabbled over the years since the 90s on workforce development. We've had a lot of traction in that area the last 2 to 3 years. We're targeting partnerships where we're working with citizens in reentry, a lot of community challenges here for folks in recovery. So trying to come up with customized workforce programs that really meet the needs and address many of the challenges folks have. I think what's really impressive about what we've been able to accomplish in workforce, particularly in the last year, is because we have so many tenant food processing or food service businesses. Many of them are looking for a skilled workforce. And when we can match people who are skill building, who are maybe on a career pathway in the food and farm sector, and that can help the growth of some of these established food businesses, you know, that's a win-win overall. And then everyone we work with at some point in whatever phase of enterprise development they're in, they're going to need to access capital. So whether it's helping people do crowdfunding to maybe launch a startup, working with some of our community development finance institutions, our county revolving loan funds, and then just our locally operated banks. We do a lot of assistance with business planning and financial planning for folks to be able to make sure they have the right capital in place at every stage of their development. Next. So we feel, and you'll see that in my slides and Tom's slides, it's really important to animate this work and to acknowledge that it's not just AceNet or Rural Action or our teams or even all our partnerships. It's the food and farm entrepreneurs who really make a difference. So whether it's Adam teaching a Serve Safe class or giving a tour to some of our partners at Grow Ohio Valley over in Wheeling, West Virginia, or hosting different annual conferences like the Women in Business Conference, we always see that TA and training is also part of that underpinning of building networks. Obviously, these last two, I guess we're going into our third year of COVID. Oh God, we've had to change up a lot of our platforms. So instead of doing as many in-person workshops, we're doing a lot more stuff virtually, a lot more remote learning, even a lot of online one-on-one TA. The whole farm planning series that Rural Action has launched. Again, we've been co-presenters on some of that programming, and learning, I think, how to do this remotely has been an interesting challenge, but I think we've learned a lot. And I think no matter where we head with COVID, I think we'll continue to do some hybridization of some of the remote learning that we've been able to experiment with this last couple of years. So next slide. Again, these are just going to be a lot of different photos that kind of suggest what's happening in these different areas, programs and services that AceNet provides. This is just a snapshot of our central or shared kitchen within our Food Ventures Center. You know, oftentimes there's multiple businesses. It's a facility that runs 24/7. So rarely is any one business ever alone in this facility. We also have a dedicated thermal processing room, a packaging room, a smaller warehouse, and then individual office space and conference rooms. I would just really encourage you to follow us on our social media platforms. You'll see a lot of photos, updates, you know, stay tuned, you know, to more recent videos. And then we have a lot of resources on our website, which I added in the chat earlier. Next slide. So just some of the activity in our Food and Farm Enterprise Center. You know, our Food Ventures Center is about a little over 12,000 square feet. To now have a much larger facility that we can grow into. One of our anchor tenants right now, Milo's Whole World Gourmet, is actually building out a whole separate thermal processing area within our facility. So we have a dedicated veg prep room. Rural Action has done a lot of their farm to school processing, both in the Food Ventures Center and in our Nelsonville facility. And then in 2018, as well as the veg prep room, we became licensed through the state of Ohio, through the Ohio Department of Agriculture's meat division for meat processing. So I think at this point, we're the only value-added meat processing facility in Ohio and possibly in Central Appalachia even. Next slide. I'm going to go kind of fast because I know we want to have time for questions. I love seeing all your questions pop up in the chat. So I talked about how essential market access is, especially for our startup businesses. So having facilities with good loading docks, a variety of different docks for folks from, using pickup trucks to sprinter vans to pack trucks to semis. So we have multiple docks, both in Athens and Nelsonville. We're doing a lot more work around regional brand campaigns. We've had some great partnerships around regional branding the last 20 years. And then AceNet and Rural Action are part of this larger Central Appalachian distribution network that has recently been funded through the USDA Regional Food System Partnership grant. You guys are familiar, as well as previous power grants. So a lot of activity there. You can catch up on a lot of that work through the Central Appalachian Network website, which we also added. Next slide. Product development. I mean, here's just some examples. Oftentimes we're working with farmers to create value-added products, or often we're identifying opportunities or maybe new trends or niches that our producers can take advantage of. So, pickled ginger a number of years ago was one of those new product lines that got developed by Green Edge Organic Gardens. Next slide. Just some more examples of workforce development. Again, this is Adam on our staff working with some of the Rural Action staff members and Vista folks to do some product development work. So training not just folks who maybe are on track to become employed in one of our tenant or user businesses, but also looking at some of these social enterprise efforts, workforce, job placement. All of this, I think, is going to just get higher as part of our priorities in the coming years. We've been working with the Star Community Justice Center. So folks who are currently incarcerated are coming to our facility and working. I think we're up to about 7 different tenant businesses that are now working with some of the gentlemen coming out of the Star Justice facility. So this is great job placement. Some of the folks, when they've been released, have now been able to find employment in some of these tenant businesses as well. Next slide. And access to capital. Whether it's a startup craft brewery needing help with a business plan, maybe accessing one of the regional CDFIs for additional investment. It might be established business like Snowville Creamery. They have their own processing facility south of us in Meigs County. So whether you're an incubator tenant or not, we're working with this large network of food and farm entrepreneurs and really businesses of all sizes. We're working with folks who are just getting started, doing some income patching, selling maybe some bakery items at the Athens Farmers Market, creating $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 of extra income for their household. And then we're working with multi-million-dollar businesses in terms of annual sales. So everyone needs capital at some point, and helping people navigate some of those challenges as part of the training and technical assistance we provide in terms of capital access. Next slide. But all of this is really based in entrepreneurship networks. So this is a really, really old picture. Tom will probably laugh. You can see him in the background. This is a convening at one of our state parks many, many years ago. But I think, you know, part of what we're doing is trying to bring all the stakeholders together. It might be extension educators, it might be established businesses, it might be regional distributors, it might be folks who are doing internet design or graphic design work, but bringing all these folks together to design services and programs to really address the needs that our network of food and farm entrepreneurs are facing is pretty essential. And that's what we keep trying to do, is really be flexible and responsive to what emerging needs are. COVID really, oh, sorry, I didn't turn my phone off. COVID really, I think, underscored those lessons for us. So next slide. Value chain coordination. Great picture of the 30-mile meal branding program with produce spelling out the brand name at the Chesterfield produce auction. We've done a lot of work throughout Central Appalachia, developing product catalogs so folks can distribute their products a little further afield than local markets. Just a lot of work there that we'd love to share with you at some point. Next slide. In regional collaboration, you know, because ACENET has operated these food facilities really since the mid-90s, we've gone through and continue to go through the school of hard knocks. We've worked probably on over 50 different food hubs or kitchen incubator feasibility plans, business plans, helping do a lot of the research and really hosting a lot of folks to come visit us and see our facilities. I'm just in the hopefully final month or so of finishing a business plan and a feasibility analysis for Grow Ohio Valley, headquartered in Wheeling, West Virginia. They have a great little building, 4-story building in the sort of downtown commercial corridor of Wheeling that they're turning into the Wheeling Food Hub. Wild Ramp, farmers markets, you know, all of this work is really strengthened through regional collaboration. And you guys know that, so I know I'm preaching to the choir here. Next slide. And then what we haven't maybe had enough time to talk about, and this could be its own presentation, is I think a really innovative way that we've addressed food access within Southeastern Ohio and really into West Virginia. You saw Tom's slide earlier. You know, food security is a generational problem for us here throughout Appalachia. COVID did not make things easier in some ways, although it has, I think, spotlighted some of the issues that we face. So in 2014, Rural Action, ACENET, and Community Food Initiatives, which is also headquartered in ACENET's facilities, also working out of the Chesterfield produce auction and the Athens Farmers Market to aggregate produce, has really tried to address as a network some of the demand channels that we hope to be able to just make sure everyone within our communities has access, not just to food, but to fresh, healthy, local food. So programs like the Veggie Van, having produce prescription programs, SNAP expanded at our area farmers markets, the farm to school initiatives, you know, those are just some of the things that we've been able to accomplish as partners. And I think the secret sauce within this network is we have a shared staff member who is our food partner coordinator. That job description is housed and employed within ACENET, but it's still a shared position between the 3 organizations. So we did send out our 7-year retrospective study that kind of highlights some of the successes and track record within that network. So if you haven't had a chance to look at that, I would encourage you to do that, or you can find more information about the Accessible Food Network on all of our websites. Next slide. And this is just the shameless AceNet infomercial. Go to our website, follow us on Facebook. You know, we have a monthly e-newsletter. We would encourage you to sign up for that. Now, AceNet does work outside of the food and farm sector, so you'd learn a little bit more about all the things that we do in multiple economic sectors in the region. But to a large degree, so much of our work, the depth and breadth of our work, is definitely in the food and farm sector. So that's it. Now we can look at one another's faces and answer questions.
Thank you, Leslie and Tom. We really appreciate it. I know we're coming up towards 11. I think Leslie and Tom will be with us until 11:15 if people can stay. But just starting with a couple of questions, building off Maureen's question. Tom and Leslie, you both talked about the idea of transparency and sharing funding. If you could speak to that. And Maureen's question is specifically about staffing and other ways of collaboration with the Appalachian Accessible Food Network.
Well, so, and Tom can fill in some of the blanks here too. When we were forming the Food Access Network, we were really looking at funding through a number of philanthropy partners within the region. Oftentimes we would have one-off kind of, you know, more project-focused funding. And in 2014, we went to the Osteopathic Heritage Foundation of Nelsonville, the Athens County Foundation, the Foundation for Appalachia, Ohio, and we started to float this concept that we need multiple year funding and to really move the needle, you know, in this desperate sort of food insecure environment we experience in Appalachia, Ohio, that this is not one-off project work. We appreciate that investment from funders, but oftentimes we need that ongoing philanthropic investment because then that helps us leverage many of the larger USDA grants, especially 2 or 3 year grants. So the Osteopathic Heritage Foundation of Nelsonville, they funded us for a walk-in cooler initially here at AceNet, as well as a year's worth of planning between multiple organizations. So the 3 anchors are still AceNet, Rural Action, and CFI. But part of that planning process was including other agencies, working with the Southeastern Ohio Regional Food Bank and Kitchen. We work with our Community Action Agency. And then as this network has expanded, there's a lot of other partners. I would say the healthcare institutions have made probably a stronger recent, I would say, investment into collaborating with us. You know, educational institutions, we've had some ups and downs, but we have some extraordinary school districts who are very active with us in Farm to School. In fact, Tom just brought over one of our adjoining counties, Washington County, one of their school districts, their health department, and then our incredibly exemplary Farm to School partner, which is the Federal Hocking School District. And then in terms of funding, you write a lot of grants. So I and my team in partnership, you know, I can't even imagine, Tom. I mean, I think AceNet and Rural Action and CFI, we write at least 10 to 12 maybe collaborative grants annually. AceNet usually writes about 50 to 60. In fact, I have 3 due February 28th.
Right. And the thing is, we invite new partners too, consistently, besides just Rural Action, AceNet, and CFI. And we share each other's the transparency piece, I mean, the big thing is we're meeting weekly, we're speaking our mind. We talk about what each other needs in terms of a budget. And I think we work together pretty well to grow each other, you know.
But there is a time investment. So the question of, yes, we have designated staff, you know, you see more of the leadership here between myself and Tom, but we also have just phenomenal staff and vistas who work together on a lot of this project work as well. And you know, it's targeted oftentimes. We've just finished up at ACENET a Beginning Farmers and Ranchers grant. Rural Action has just started a Beginning Farmers and Ranchers grant, and we write each other in as contractors or sub-awardees in a lot of these grants that we apply for. You know, rarely do we singly just apply for funding unless it's like, you know, a smaller $3,000 to $5,000 grant.
And the thing is too, we pay the producers every chance we get. So if somebody is presenting, you know, as a farm mentor or the season creation model, we strongly feel that people need paid to share their intellectual capital. So we're always thinking, you know, writing that in.
Leslie and Tom, the next question, and I also want to, that you have already shared a report, and we'll share these slides out. And in talking with Tom and Leslie, they have invited the partnership and others to visit ACENET and Rural Action this summer. So that's something that we're going to be looking into and trying to plan. But the question from Sean for both of you is, how do you help people to get access to capital?
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing access to capital programs since the 80s, and I think it constantly changes here. To a large degree, it doesn't matter what sector, but if you're a farmer, you know, if you're a startup restaurateur, if you're someone who has this great barbecue recipe that you want to produce as a wholesale FDA compliant product line, most of these folks do not come to us with extensive financial management skills. Oftentimes, they don't even have sort of good household financial management skills. So a lot of workshops to get people sort of grounded, but to a large degree, we're doing one-on-one technical assistance. So it's helping people develop a break-even analysis, a profit loss, a balance sheet, a cash flow, projections. It's helping people look at the different maybe lenders that they can access. So oftentimes we will host meetings with our county revolving loan fund staff and our entrepreneur. So, you know, I don't want to say we write people's business plans for them, but we're very much elbow to elbow. We have templates on the website that we, you know, help people get started with. So it's a very iterative process in terms of developing the business plan before they can access whatever best form of capital is. And then I think, you know, more recently, crowdfunding is a piece of that. So helping people navigate what's the best platform. Rural Action is in partnership with Kiva. So a number of our ag producers have used Kiva as sort of a stepping stone to access capital. And then we've received a year and a half ago funding from Farm Aid, and we've done a small grant program. So it's not always just lending. We have had grant programs, and certainly during COVID, we've helped a lot of people access different grants. through some of these special new funds that have started. And then, I mean, we help people write value-added producer grants, SARE applications. I don't know. We're always grubbing for money.
Well, I know we're right at 11, but Tom and Leslie are still going to be with us. But I did want to give Maureen or Katie. Katie put in a short survey that we'd like to get your feedback with. And Maureen, if you could share about the next learning exchange and any other details. And then for those that can stay on, we'll continue with a few more questions. So, Maureen?
Yeah, it looks like Katie just dropped the next learning exchange in the chat. So if you want to go ahead and open that up and save the date, I'll be sending out a follow-up email with the date and information. And then as we approach our next learning exchange on March 16th, we'll be sending out registration. But yep, our next learning exchange is Food Policy Council Possibilities, Stories of Successes and Lessons Learned from the Bottom Up. I can find the specific partners for that too and drop them in the chat. And then we also have the survey, as Eric mentioned, in the chat as well. So if you don't mind taking, you should just take a couple minutes to get a little feedback on the learning exchange. But from here, if anybody wants to stay on, if you have one more question for Leslie or Tom before we part ways. Otherwise, feel free to pop off, and I appreciate you all coming today. And really big thank you to Tom and Leslie. Really appreciate hearing from you all.
And we love to come visit you too. I just had a bunch of projects over in the Shenandoah Valley, mostly in Page and Rockbridge County. So, and then one of my all-time loves is the Little Grill in Harrisonburg, because the other thing I do, my other paid gig, is I'm the founder and business director of a worker-owned restaurant that's been in operation since '85. I'll do one small shameless promotion, casanueva.com.
Well, thank you again. And the question I had, I know both of you spoke about the idea of destination and placemaking and how regional branding plays into that. And also, yeah, the Casa Nueva, that's a wonderful place to visit as well. So that would be my question.
The destination piece is really big. So we're here in Southeast Ohio. We're like 2 hours from Columbus, which is millions of people. And then maybe like half an hour from like the micropolitan area of Marietta and Parkersburg, and it's a college town, in Athens, but the big bringing people here to spend money based on our assets is a big piece of what Rural Action and AceNet do. And there was a question in the chat about do we partner beyond the Appalachia Accessible Food Network? I think about 3 miles from where I'm sitting right now is like a major off-road mountain bike trail called the Baileys that AceNet, Rural Action, Wayne National Forest, which is a big partner. So all partnered together to kind of build and market and bring people here. And the piece of that is, you're bringing people here, there needs to be things in place for them to spend money. So we've been working a lot with Airbnb development and thinking about making new hotel rooms and new restaurants, because if you don't have those things, people could easily come and go.
And I really got to give a shout out to the Appalachian Regional Commission. You know,
Right.
they have done a lot of funding in these, what I see as sectors that really cross-pollinate with one another. So we were working kind of in that tourism and outdoor recreation space prior to COVID. Again, as partners, Rural Action was the lead and secured a trails, towns, and tourism project funding through a power grant in 2019. We finished that up. Now the Outdoor Regional Council of Appalachia, ORCA, has the next round that we're all in as well. But I think what's interesting is you can look at southeastern Ohio and you can see the city of Athens or Athens County as kind of the hub for local food tourism. So now the question is, how do we spread that out? You know, how do we create more restaurant, cafe, food truck, whatever opportunities in these smaller trail towns that are, you know, revitalizing and hopefully becoming more of a gateway for tourism? Because we want people to stay overnight in Shawnee and go to their new microbrewery, you know. So here's Southern Perry County looking at this branding partnership. One of our other brands most recently is Ohio's Winding Road. So Google that. The 30-mile meal, that's been a brand that we've partnered with the Athens County Convention and Visitors Bureau on since 2010. And again, you know, a lot of support from both philanthropy, ARC, regional and federal. So ARC and USDA funding has helped a lot with these brand programs.
And we have a question, a hand up.
Yep.
Amazetta?
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I was actually
Good
in the
morning.
middle of writing this out. So far I got to, we focus on educating the family in food production and preparation. We also want to, if COVID will allow us, to do some training in canning, you know, how to preserve the food, because we are in a desert here in Roanoke, Virginia. So we're focusing on rural food production and distribution. And some of the partners in our regional network that Mo heads is like they're doing agricultural and teaching youth and families together, anyone that we can reach. However, the problem that we have is we have a structure that needs to be demolished. And in order for us to build the educational pavilion that will allow partnership and collaboration of other organizations, from health organizations to social organizations, crime prevention activities and such. But I don't know where to go to seek that development funding. Can anybody steer me in a direction that we can follow through with?
Yeah, there's a lot of funding. And probably, if anything, I would say more funding on the horizon. I mean, I would start with your local foundation partners and get to know them. But two organizations that we partner with, Community Food Initiatives and Live Healthy Appalachia, I would really direct you to their websites to see some of the programming they do. I think there's a lot of things that they're implementing that you could just sort of rip off and develop, you know, do that R&D work. And then, you know, I don't know how you guys are working as a regional partnership, but it seems like there would be extension educators who could help you identify some of the funding.
Well,
And it seems like
we got one of the best on the scene today, so definitely, I'm sure he will. Sean, good morning. That you will definitely, let me know what we can do, because also I do have a background with the National Corporation of Service. Saw some of the vistas in the slides, and being a prior Vista AmeriCorps leader, I think we could really get this going on. I think it would be an asset to our regional network.
and it
Yeah, I'm
seems like
interested in funding opportunities too, but I'm new to the job and still trying to figure out what those are.
so I'm hearing a trajectory of this project that leads me to think you guys might be thinking about a USDA community food project,
All
because
right.
you're already laying the groundwork of community input. So I think
I'm gonna spank you one day.
when do you think that one will come out, Leslie?
Well, we have
I think
one
like
pending.
September.
I'm trying to think. I don't know, some of the
I think like
USDA
September.
scheduling
Right.
is so confusing right now. But yeah, I mean, the thing I always encourage people to do, and maybe this is Sean and Eric, every couple of days, I just go to grants.gov and then see what grants RFPs have been released. I mean, we have big databases of funders and programs. That's stuff I always put in the feasibility analysis work that we do. So I don't know, maybe there's some offline meeting about some of that. And then, you guys should really become active in the Central Appalachian Network's food and ag systems working group.
Right.
Because as CAN, I mean, we've been writing a lot of collaborative grants as CAN anchor organization partners as well. In fact, Tom and I were supposed to be on another CAN call at 10. Ha ha ha, the other people are on, because we'd rather be with you guys.
Well, thank you, Leslie and Tom. There's one last question, I think, from French with regarding the new local purchase assistance cooperative agreement program.
Well, tell us if you figure it out.
Yeah. We don't really, we need to take a harder look at it, maybe. But the problem is we don't really have that kind of big capacity. But you guys, with ex-tobacco farmers and maybe more bottom line land, there should be some production in Roanoke. I mean, what's the average farm size and things like that, like really identifying, where is the food?
Yeah, is
Figure out,
local food
how
help
can we
sourcing from
aggregate
your
it?
region?
Yeah.
I think that's one of the issues, is that we just don't have a lot of food production in the Roanoke area. Franklin County, south of us, has more farmers. We're just really limited. I think part of it's the topography. We don't have a lot of flat ground around here. But part of it's just a lot of the farmers have transitioned to hay production and aren't farming vegetables anymore. Yeah.
Right.
Well, thank you again, Tom and Leslie. I know it's 11:15, and we really appreciate you staying on, and we'll be in contact about a potential visit this summer, because there is, from my previous visit, I know there's a lot to see and learn, and hope to catch up. And thank you again.
Okay, well, thanks for having